John, welcome to the only football channel. My name is Kyle. We got a little bit of news to cover today. Some new draft locations, a Super Bowl location has been discovered. DeAndre Hopkins was on the I Am Athlete podcast. We'll see what he said regarding the team that he wishes to go in the future. And we'll just start with those. So DeAndre Hopkins is the first thing I wanted to dive right into because there was a lot that you could unpack, I think, from what he said. And he didn't say much, but sometimes you don't have to say much to actually say a lot. So DeAndre Hopkins was on the I Am Athlete podcast, and he posted this on Monday today. This is what he said regarding what is important to him in the next potential place that he will land in. He said, I think that's something I haven't really had in the past couple of years, talking about stability. And he says, in the past couple of years of my career coming from Houston to being in Arizona, I've been through 3 to 4 GMs in my career, a quarterback who loves the game, a quarterback who brings everybody on board with him, pushes not himself, but those around him. I don't need a great QB. I've done it with subpar QBs. Just a quarterback who loves the game like I do and a great defense. I think defenses win championships. And he said, for me, that's it. Great management, a QB who loves the game, and a great defense. So when I first read this, I thought, man, if you're the quarterback of Arizona, now forget about all the quarterbacks he played with in Houston. Deshaun Watson arguably was the best quarterback. I don't feel like you could make an argument that he played with anyone better than Deshaun Watson. But we do understand that where he's at right now in his career, he's not talking about Deshaun Watson. Okay. It seems to me that he's talking about Kyler Murray. I think anytime in life, you are making a decision, a lot of times you're making that decision based on, recency biased. So let's say I was in a really bad situation for 1 year. Okay. And you asked me what I'm looking for in my next place, it would probably be everything that I was lacking in this year. I probably wouldn't have to dig 7 years in the past to be like, oh, yeah, my second year in Houston, I didn't like that we didn't have a running game. I want a running back. No, it's going to be the stuff that's bothering you as of late. So to me, when he said, I don't need a great QB, I've done it with subpar QBs, I'm not sure if he's talking about Kyler, but the next thing he says, I am sure that he's talking about Kyler. Just the QB who loves the game like I do, right? And this kind of goes back into Kyler Murray having it written in his contract that he had to have study time. Um, we've seen DeAndre Hopkins so many times on the field, kind of standing in the middle of Kingsbury and Kyler Murray. Um, and you could kind of get the feel that DeAndre Hopkins felt like he was the adult on the field. He was dad, if you will. And I think Kyler Murray is looking to go to a place where I don't think he's shying away from the role he can play as a leader himself, but I do think he's looking to be among other people that are also at his level of maturity. And look, all he's looking for is somebody who absolutely loves the game, a good defense, and some stability in the upper management, GM down. And I think for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, and we see this so many times where sometimes the most elite position in the league, I mean, Kyler Murray is one of the elite receivers, but he has kind of had a crummy deal this far. He hasn't found a lot of success, whether it was Houston. I know they made the playoffs a couple times, maybe twice in his career, but and they started off pretty good last season. I think they were 5-0, maybe 6-0, but for the most part, DeAndre Hopkins hasn't been a part of an organization that is winning football games, that has stability upstairs, that has a quarterback that absolutely just loves the game. He's been around a lot of video game playing, upper management struggling, GM fired midseason type, situations. But I also think you can kind of track this back to the fact that, like, some people get lucky. And I think for the most part, though, when you are an elite quarterback, I mean, wide receiver, when you're an elite wide receiver, let's say you are the best at your position, number one. And when it comes time to pay you, a lot of the teams that have that quarterback that you're looking for, the stability that you want, let's say Kansas City, Baltimore now, um, you know, you could go down a list. All the teams that have that quarterback, they don't have room to pay Kyler Murray a ton of money, or I'm sorry, they don't have the room to pay DeAndre Hopkins, the highest salary in the league. Really quick, we got Robert in the chat. He said, "Bro, it's nice to see you. Always good to see you. Thanks for hopping in here for a second. No pun intended." Um, but you look at the teams that pay elite money for a wide receiver, it's normally going to be the teams that haven't paid their quarterback yet. And the teams that haven't paid their quarterback yet, usually, unless you have one of the young future goats, it's going to be like how it was in Houston before Deshaun started playing well. It's going to be like Arizona last year. It's going to be like the Commanders, right? The way they're going to be this year. It's going to be like the Bucks, the way they're going to be this year. Just go down the list of people that haven't paid top dollar for their quarterback, and you probably found yourself your home. So what he says in this, he says nothing about money. He doesn't say, I want to make a lot of money. He said, I want a quarterback who loves the game, a great defense, and solid upper management. So it does seem that he is a kind of understanding that he can't have both. And this is something that I've talked about a lot, especially with Lamar Jackson's case that just went by. Was like, you want to have all these weapons, but you want to be the highest paid receiver. It's really difficult. Look at Mahomes. He got it done with four receivers that all don't even equal what Tyreek Hill made, but he won the Super Bowl with them. Nobody's going out there and saying, look, Patrick Mahomes can't be great because he doesn't have enough receivers, right? The idea is if you're a great quarterback, you're going to make your receivers great. But for the teams that don't have Patrick Mahomes or Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or whatever, then you have to really say, what do we have here as a quarterback? Do we have somebody that can make average receivers play at a high level? And if you don't, then why pay your quarterback money like he's going to be able to do that? Right? Because the bottom line is DeAndre Hopkins understands that I've been the highest paid receiver at my position, and I basically I've sold my soul for the money. But you know what? I don't have a ring. I haven't been around QBs that love the game. My head coach is on the field fighting with my quarterback. It's a clown show. So he gets to the point where he's like, you know what? Forget about the money and give me this. And I can really respect that because I've seen a lot of times people want the best of both worlds and it just can't be done. But now here you have DeAndre Hopkins. I feel like he's getting, older, a little more wiser, and he understands I'll take a pay cut to go play with the Jets. I'll take a pay cut to go play with the Chiefs. I'll take a pay cut to go play with a team that's got a solid defense, a quarterback that loves the game, and a solid front office. That is called a shift in priorities, and it normally does happen with age. But for some receivers, they just never kind of turn that gear. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Some people just want to make as much money as they can possibly make until their time expires. I think DeAndre Hopkins is also smart enough to know that his value as a wide receiver may not be at, the 20 plus million a year it was last year right now. But if you did want to get another contract like that, if you took a pay cut this year and went to a team like the Jets or, maybe not the Jets, but like a Chiefs, and you ball out you could get another one of those huge contracts probably. Like somebody might be like, "Hey, this guy's got another 4 years, 100 million in him." So, as of right now, I don't know if that's what, he wants in the future. I think he just wants to be a part of a team that when January rolls around, he's still on the field playing ball. He's still got a chance to win it all. I think he wants to be on a competitive football team. And I think that him going on this I Am Athlete podcast was, I don't want to say a cry for help, but I think he was trying to, it was probably his agent who told him, like, look, let's set something up. You need to put this out there yourself that you don't care about money anymore. Because when I hear DeAndre Hopkins hasn't found a home yet, you have to ask, why is a receiver of DeAndre Hopkins' caliber still available? Well, simple. Nobody wants to touch him with a 10-inch pole because of the price tag that is hanging. And if he wants to, rewrite this narrative, he had to go public and say, no, I don't care about the money. And I guarantee you, in the next month, you're going to see DeAndre Hopkins on a new team because this is probably what every GM wants to hear. All those GMs that weren't calling because they knew they couldn't afford Hopkins, guess what they're going to do right now? Wolf of Wall Street. They're going to pick up the phone and start dialing. And they're going to call and see, okay, I don't know how big of a pay cut he's willing to take, but my quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, he said he would love for Hopkins to come over. We got great coaches. We got a guy that loves the game, and our defense is getting better. There's going to be phone calls that are going to start getting made. And I think this was a really smart move on Hopkins. And honestly, for Hopkins, I hope that he goes to a team that has a chance to win the Super Bowl. I despise seeing the highest level of talent at any position for a long period of time leave the NFL without a ring. It truly saddens me. Gosh, my allergies. I'm allergic to cats, and I just found out. Girlfriend's taking care of a cat, and I've been trying to figure it out. But yeah, I'm getting old. I'm discovering new allergies. Like that's what you do when you get old. You're like, I'm allergic to cats now. When did that start? Um, but yeah, so I really hope for his sake that he's able to do that. The NFL owners did have a meeting, and I wanted to go over some of the things that are passed in the meeting. Um, there's a draft location and a Super Bowl location, but before I hit those, I wanted to discuss that the NFL owners approved modified proposal for flexing Thursday night football games. So the NFL's taken another step toward ensuring that the best possible games will be played in front of the largest audiences. Now, how many times have we seen these Thursday night games? No, snooze fest. Bears, Commanders, I don't want to watch that game anymore. And I funny enough, the Bears and Commanders are playing again. Last week, I believe they played week 4. This year, they're playing week 5. I mean, it's total deja vu. Bill's in the chat. What's going on, Bill? Happy to have you in here as always. Cheers, my friend. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of something that needed to be done a long time ago. The resolution does come with strict requirements. Thursday games can only be flexed between week 13 and week 17 with a 4-week notice required. Only 2 Thursday night games can be flexed per year. And the resolution notes that the flexible scheduling for Thursday night football is on a trial basis. To, I guess, give it a trial run, do a dry run, see how it goes. But I know last year that the Denver Broncos were a beneficiary of a flex. They were supposed to play the Chiefs on Sunday night, and the Broncos were so bad that they flexed them out. And it kind of sucks because it was one of the Broncos' best games. And I swear, every time they had a primetime game, they played the worst in front of the nation. And then finally, a game that they got flexed out. I thought they looked really good. They had fired Nathaniel Hackett. They had Jerry Riceberg, a special teams coach, leading the team. And it just showed you, damn, maybe Nathaniel Hackett is the reason we sucked. But the rest of the world didn't get to see that. But that's not the point. The point is that the whole idea is that you flex boring games out because we can only predict so much of how the season's going to go. Broncos Chiefs last year looked like a fire game at the end of the season on Sunday night. But by week 12, week 13, we looked at that game way differently. And most people, including myself, were like, not another primetime game. Denver is not, what you thought they were going to be in the beginning of the season. They're not that. So get them off the primetime slot. And that's exactly what it's for. And the only difference now is that now it's going to be Thursday night as well, that people have the ability to flex those boring games out. Bill said the Maras voted against the flex, the Giants owner voting against the flex. And yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to pretend I understand all the logistics that go into this and people's reasons for not wanting it. I would imagine it's just too difficult for ball clubs to plan ahead and then to change their plans, and it's probably not very coach friendly. Who knows? But um I think I think if you really do care that the NFL people are getting the best product, you see, I was gonna say that you would be for it, but at the end of the day, man, what happened to any given Sunday? And I really want to drive this point home. If all we do is play the Chiefs on Thursday and Sunday night football, all we do is play the two teams that are supposed to be, oh, it's the Jets and it's the Jets and the Chiefs and it's the Bills and the Bengals. If all we do is play those, then what happens when Cleveland plays the New York Jets and they're up 13 points with less than 2 minutes left, and Joe Flacco throws a touchdown pass, and then they kick an onside, and then they recover the onside, and then Joe Flacco goes on another touchdown drive, and the Jets win by 1. What happens to that game? Well, it wasn't interesting enough to be on prime time, sure. But you know what? That game happened last year, week 2, and it was one of the most exciting finishes that I have ever seen in football. First off, an onside kick usually doesn't work, and it worked. And not only that, they ended up winning the game. But that's kind of my whole point is, if you're only force feeding Bills, Bengals, and Chiefs, Bills, and Jets, and the tier one teams, you're not leaving any room for the Jets Browns to be an unexpected great game. And this is the league of any given Sunday. And we saw the Commanders beat the Eagles on, I think, week 13 on a Thursday night last year. Nobody thought that the Commanders could beat the Eagles. And honestly, with this flex rule, it was possible at that point that people would have voted for that game to be flexed. But I do think that in order to get out of our own way, it's kind of like the radio, man. Everybody wants to hear the best songs on the radio, but here's the thing. What people consider the best is like a list of 7 songs, and they just repeat the same song over and over, and it's like, once in a while it's nice to hear a song on the radio that you don't, turn that off. I've heard it too many times. Um like, I understand that prime time also deserves they got to protect the integrity of prime time. You cannot have Broncos Colts out there. And when they go out there and it's 6-9 at the end of the game, that's not good for football. That's not good for money. That's not good for the fans. So I do think you have to walk a fine line here, but I like all of the restrictions, because as you saw, it has strict requirements. And I think as long as they keep those strict and there's a lot of hoops that people have to jump through, we're not going to just see, tier 2 get flexed out for tier 1. It's got to be a damn good reason that we're flexing out teams, but I do think it should be an option. I just think let's put a lot of, tape around so that, it doesn't turn into just swapping in another primetime game that We probably saw in another primetime game, like in the case of divisional games, Chargers and Chiefs, they play twice a year. What are we going to start playing a game that's already on primetime again because the Bills and Jets play twice? We just we got to keep the diversity thing flowing, and the NFL is kind of going in the other way, as we saw that they've already taken away the rule that every team gets at least one primetime game. Not anymore, right? So you don't even get that one primetime game. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of that. I think if you've ever been a fan of your team through some hard years, you kind of look forward to that one primetime game where you can show the world, who you are. And to take that away so the Chiefs get a seventh, to me is just, I don't know, not a fan of that. So the other thing that happened in this meeting today was that the NFL decided that they were going to host the NFL draft in 2025 in Green Bay. I think that this is great for the city of Green Bay. If you've ever been to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and if you go to a football game there, it is like no other team in the NFL. It is insane going to a game in Green Bay. Just imagine you're in the middle of the suburbs. Okay. Let's say you pass Lee Road and your houses. And then all of a sudden you turn left, maybe at a four-way stop sign. It's just houses everywhere. And then all of a sudden you're in someone's backyard and it opens up into an actual NFL stadium. It almost feels like it I don't know how to explain it, but it almost feels like the world is smaller and larger all at the same time. Um, Very incredibly hard to even put in words, but you just see like, wow, these games that I've been watching all these years on a TV, right? You just always imagine that, you fantasize about how things look around the stadium, and then you're actually at the game and you're in some dude's backyard. Some dude, it's just you're in the middle of a neighborhood, and it was like, "Hey, let's just build a stadium here." And it would be one thing if they built a stadium there and it was like the Cleveland Browns. They're like, "Let's build a stadium and, be called Title Town and have, the Brett Favres and Aaron Rodgers and, be considered the best place for, great quarterback play in the history of the sport. Yeah, we're going to do it in the backyard." It is truly an incredible experience. I think everybody that loves the game of football should go to a game at Lambeau Field. And I mean, I want to go to every stadium, and I'm going to be doing that really soon. Um, During the actual games, I want to experience the food and the culture and see what it's like to go to get a Philly cheesesteak. Be cliche, get a Philly cheesesteak in Philly. Um, just do what the locals are doing, and rank each stadium 1 to 32. Which one did I like the most? Which one, would I pass? Because I assume like a Texans game would be towards the bottom. But imagine I go to a Texans game and I have the time of my life and I meet really cool fans. Like, you just never know until you throw yourself out there. So anyway, Green Bay having the NFL draft there is just another thing that I think is so cool, because when you think, "Oh, Nashville's hosting the draft," it's like, "Yeah, okay." Vegas is hosting the draft. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, even when they said Kansas City, I was like, "Oh, okay, that's pretty good for the community." The fact that it's gonna be in Green Bay, I mean, I can't even imagine what that's gonna be like. Just a bunch of people setting up a spot for Roger Goodell in the draft to take place. It would be like if you ever grew up in a really small town and the president, came by to do a speech, and you lived in a neighborhood of like 1,000 people. And you're just like, I can't believe the freaking president is in, this small ass town in Kentucky. Well, now they're doing the draft in this, tiny ass town, and I think it's so cool. I'm excited, man. I think it's going to be really great. I think it's important for the history of the game that we include Green Bay in things like the draft. And they get to, not be excluded because they're different, but they also get to share their history with the next generation. Green Bay is an easy place to forget about and to hit snooze, but I don't think we should, because I do think it's neat that they're owned by the people, and it would only make sense the way the stadium is built and where it's built that all the people around do own the stadium. So good for Green Bay, good for the NFL. I'm really looking forward to that. I might go to this in person, to be honest. Um, so it would be my first draft ever in person. Bill said, "Let me know when you go to Sci-Fi," and I will. I'm excited to go to Sci-Fi. I'm looking at going this year against the Chargers. So that is, I'm looking forward to that. I've heard that that stadium is just incredible, and Bronco fans travel really well when it comes to, going to Los Angeles. So I'm super stoked about that. It's also pretty easy to get from LAX to SoFi. It's just basically one road for like 19 minutes, and you run right into it. So I've been already looking at, getting from the airport to the stadium, and it looks like I think they have I think it may be, I'm thinking of another stadium, but I think they have a rail, like a train situation that goes right to it. Um but if not, I looked it up and it was like literally there's a what's that burger? In and Out. There's an In and Out burger that's like right by LAX. You can see the planes all landing. And if you just keep going straight on that road, you'll run right into SoFi. So probably not a train, but probably a super easy Uber or Lyft. But speaking of the other things the NFL decided on, the Super Bowl in 2026 is going to be in San Francisco. And that is kind of a good omen for Bronco fans, because Super Bowl 50 was the last Super Bowl we were in, and we won the Super Bowl there. And that's the last time the Levi Stadium in the Bay Area has hosted a Super Bowl. So San Francisco is set to host its third Super Bowl in history in 2026. This was approved today at the spring league meeting, and they made a statement. The Bay Area was an incredible host to Super Bowl 50, and we are thrilled to bring the Super Bowl back. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said in his statement on Monday, "We look forward to working with the 49ers and the Bay Area Host Committee to create an impactful Super Bowl in 2026 that showcases all the great things the region has to offer." The venue saw the Denver Broncos triumph over the Carolina Panthers in Super Bowl 50, which was the swan song of Hall of Fame quarterback Peyton Manning, and it marked the first Super Bowl set in the Bay Area in over 30 years. And then Stanford Stadium hosted Super Bowl in 1985 when the 49ers beat the Dolphins to win the franchise's second Lombardi. So, good stuff, man. When I think about the Bay Area in general, because the NFL does always try to play the Super Bowl in a warm weather area, and I left this comment up there. I was kind of surprised that the Bay Area hasn't been home to more Super Bowls. Um, we know domes. The NFL is building more and more domes, so more Super Bowls have been in dome environments. It's definitely more of an incentive to build a dome for new owners because the Super Bowl brings in so much revenue. But at the same time, you I mean, unless it's fully retractable, a team like Buffalo, you don't want to lose that advantage of playing in snow. Like, you're used to it. The Dolphins aren't. And if everybody just turns into a dome, this might be a little old school kind of thinking, but I feel like part of football is, you know, crazy weather, like the below freezing games, the snowstorms. Like, that's what makes football football. We don't pause the game because of weather. We're tough. We play through the weather. If anything, the weather pauses because of us. That is the attitude that I've always liked to football. But if you're just going to create, 30 30 domes, where it's 75 degrees and no wind, to me that becomes kind of like boring. I like when I'm flipping channels in late September to be in Buffalo and see that it's snowing, and then flip to Miami and see that the fans are blowing because it's 91 degrees, and then flip to a dome in New Orleans, and it's just part of it feels like you're time traveling. You're in all these different climates and places at one time, but you put everybody in a dome, I feel like you lose that. It's like, "Oh, another arena, another arena." So, that was a total sidebar just to say that, I hope that every because what they say that an NFL stadium has to be rebuilt or modified every 15 years. So I just hope that, down the road, we don't get ourselves into a position where everybody's building to host the Super Bowl, because it'd be a shame to see, a place like Lambeau Field turn into a dome. And um, Coral, do you guys know who Matt Coral is? Matt Coral had his rookie season with the Panthers last year, and he was drafted last year from Ole Miss. And he was actually a quarterback that was really fun to watch. I believe it was Ole Miss. I just want to make sure. Yeah, yeah, it was Ole Miss. Bill said Commodores need a new stadium anyway with the new owners. Let's see if they build a dome. Yeah, to be honest, like, I don't really care about the Commodores because, I never really thought about the Commodores as like, oh, what a home field advantage. Like, the Commodores just don't stand out to me. It'd be like if I found out, and it's also that region is like, the weather doesn't really get nasty. It can get a little cold, but I mean, it's not like Wisconsin cold. It's kind of like Tennessee. If the Titans built a dome, I'd be like, D does it really matter? So what? So twice a year, it'll be nice weather. I mean, Tennessee did get some like negative degree weather last year, but it was abnormal. Um, I'm thinking more like the teams like the Steelers, the Bears, the Packers, the Ravens, Buffalo, the Patriots. Um, the Broncos. Never do I want to see the Broncos in a dome, because from the stadium you can see the Rocky Mountains. Denver's beautiful. It would be like just such a shame to cover up how beautiful that city is with walls just to put you inside. It's an outdoor sport. It's an outdoor sport. But if you're telling me that, the Atlanta Falcons, who play in the Mercedes arena already, the Falcons, the Commanders, the even the Browns, I don't want them in a dome. Um, but there are a handful of teams I honestly I don't really care. In the Commanders, definitely. are on that list. And I know I'm mean to the Commanders, but they're just, to me, a really boring football team. And the only time they were even semi exciting in my lifetime was when they had RG3. And we all know that didn't last very long. Um, so Matt Corral did say, if it was up to me, I don't want to get traded. Talking about leaving Carolina, he said, I love the people here. I love the people I'm around. I want to play for head coach Frank Reich. I really like the coaches that we have around us. I don't know if this is any kind of delusion, but the fact that he thinks that he's going to be able to get in and play when they just drafted Bryce Young and they have Andy Dalton as the QB1, Coral might need to fight for a spot maybe on another team. I'm thinking like maybe the Commanders, the Bucks. I mean, when you think about what the Panthers gave up to move up to that number one spot to be able to draft Bryce Young, you don't give up that much if you're in a QB competition. So personally, I think Matt Corral should get a chance to see if he's improved from his rookie year till now. I just feel like it's not going to be with Carolina, and I think even if he did, he would need to like completely ball out during the preseason. So we'll see. Injuries happen. I don't wish injuries on anybody, but they happen. Maybe he gets an opportunity there, but he may end up being just a long term backup. And then the NFL also released a top 10 most complete teams for 2023. And I kind of had a problem with this list a little bit. So, number one, they put Philly. Number two, they put the Chiefs. The Chiefs just, you can make an argument that they just have never really had a good defense. Um, they were one of the worst red zone defenses last year, and I know that this is a hill that I continue to go back to, but I think I'm prepared to die on this hill because when you're gonna say the most complete team in the league, you can't just throw a team in because they won the Super Bowl. And I know this goes against what, everybody probably thinks is that if you win the Super Bowl, you automatically make the list for most complete. I don't think so. I think that Patrick Mahomes is one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen, and he's able to overcome a lot of adversity and a lot of challenges because of his greatness. But to say that they are a complete team is almost disrespectful to the things that Mahomes has had to overcome because there were holes in the defense, because they were, a league's worst red zone defense. You can't put him at number two, um, in my opinion here. I think that there are the 49ers, much more complete team than the Chiefs, in my opinion. You look at the 49ers defense and offense. That's all I have to say. The offense, when Brock Purdy came in, was averaging almost 30 points a game, number one in the league, and their defense was clearly the best defense in the league. They were physical, tough, they hurt you, they sent you to injured reserve, and they ruined your next week, whoever you played. The 49ers, to me, are you could go 49ers, Eagles, maybe put Eagles number one because of Hurts, but there's no way the Chiefs are a more complete team than the 49ers. I refuse to agree with that. And you can't just say, well, they got Patrick Mahomes. This is not what the list is. It's not about who's got the best quarterback in the league. It's about who has the more complete team. And you would be hard pressed to show me any team that's more complete than a team that has Debo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Kyle Juszczyk, the offensive line that they had. Um, I mean, they are so deep, it's ridiculous. And then, on the defensive side of the ball, one of the best linebackers in the game, one of the best safeties, one of the best edge rushers in Bosa. I mean, get out of here. They literally have a roster that is almost like cheating, in my opinion. So the Bengals, I think, deserve to be on this list because of how they did in the draft. They got a lot better defensively in the draft, but they also added Orlando Brown, and they had Jonah Williams who requested a trade. We talked about that, but when you talk about complete offensively, there's not a better roster than the Bengals, and then defensively, I think that they improved a lot, and I thought their defense was playing good towards the end of last season, especially that game against Buffalo. The defense was incredible. I think this is a sneaky team that could, end up doing kind of what Philly did last year. The only problem is harder opponents. So, but if I had to take which team will win more, Bengals, Buffalo, or Chiefs, I would take the Bengals right now. Um, but I still think Jacksonville will end up with the number one seed because of their division. They're going to play a lot of easy games. They have 4 tough games, and they're all spread out by a month. So they don't have any back-to-back-to-back challenges. So the Bengals on the list totally can get behind. Dallas on the list. Um, who is Dallas? Who is the real Dallas? Because it just kind of feels like Dallas is just doing enough to make you talk about them, but never enough to make you feel good that you talked about them. And this is, a draft where they got Mozzie Smith, they got Micah Parsons, who is switching his position to edge. Demarcus Lawrence is there. Stephon Gilmore's at corner. Um, Dak Prescott. How good is Dak Prescott? Is he good enough to be considered a top 10 quarterback? I don't really think so. I said it before. I think he's the Kirk Cousins. Um, in that Kirk Cousins type category where he can win you some games, he can show up, he can be clutch, but at the end of the day, it's just Kirk Cousins. You can't expect him to turn into, Tom Brady. Like, you got to draw a hard line and understand when you have gone from tier 1 to tier 2, and it's okay. The Cowboys did it a lot with Tony Romo, and I feel like this is a very similar situation. They added Brandon Cooks, but they're losing Ezekiel Elliott. Not sure that that's even a huge loss. Rookie Deuce Vaughn. I'm really excited to see that 5'4" monster go because he's like his comparable was Darren Sproles. We'll see. That's kind of a lot to live up to, but um, I I wouldn't say that the Cowboys are probably more complete than the Bills, but they are ranked ahead of the Bills on this list. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, they added Dalton Kincaid to solve Buffalo's slot receiver problem. Um, Damian Harris, Dalton Kincaid is a tight end, just to clear that up, but it's solving their slot receiver problem. They brought in Damian Harris and Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray has a lot in the tank, and if you watched his film last season, you would know that. That's easily a name that you could snooze and just say pass. Don't care about what Latavius Murray is doing. That guy takes really good care of his body. He approaches the game like a true professional. That dude's ready to go. Latavius Murray's going to make an impact on any team. He's still good enough. He's just not good enough to be an RB1, and they're not asking him to do that. James Cook is a great, he's a great young player. We'll see how good he can get, but he definitely looked good last season, and he's only probably going to get better this year because now he's not going to be overcooked, if you will. Dad joke. Then the Ravens. The Ravens come in at number 7. Lamar Jackson, Odell Beckham. They added Zay Flowers out of Boston College, Nelson Aguilar. I mean, their offense, there's no excuse. Like, we'll just be clear about this. Like, there's no excuse. You paid the guy the money. You got him the best receiving core that Baltimore may has ever had, to be honest. Go down the list of, receiving groups. This might be the best. And I feel like it's reasonable to say, I wouldn't say Super Bowl or bust, but when we are one game away from the Super Bowl, we better be there. If we're not there, then why all the money to Lamar? Why all the money if we're gonna go 10-7 and lose in the wild card round to the Bengals? And I think that's a reasonable question. Is Lamar good enough to take this team to where, it really wants to go? Well, they've done away with the excuses. They've added the weapons. And now this is a season for us as fans and even the people that love the Ravens to just sit back and watch Lamar either prove that he's worth the money or prove that the Ravens didn't have any better options available at the time. Um, Either way, though, we're gonna kind of find out what these guys are made out of this year. Their defense is pretty good. I mean, they check a few boxes, but their biggest one is at corner, where they have Marlon Humphrey, and a lot of question marks. Who's the other outside starter? Who's the slot? Signing Rock Sin helps. We saw that signing last week. They could always bring back Marcus Peters or Kyle Fuller. Kyler Fuller is, in my opinion, past his days. If anybody's going to get any use out of Fuller at this point, it's going to be Vic Fangio, who was his defensive coordinator in Chicago. And that's why when he came to Denver, he brought Fuller with him. But I think that at this point in his career, Kyle Fuller just he's not great. He's injured a lot, very injury prone. So they do have some question marks here at cornerback, um, especially when it comes to covering the slot. And I do think that this is going to be important because you look at the Bengals and you know that they got, very good receivers down the entire thing from our wide receiver 1 to wide receiver 3. Tyler Boyd is a very good slot receiver, and they're going to have a problem stopping them defensively if they don't get better at corner. Then you got the Jets that come in at number 8. They added, obviously, I don't even need to say it, but number 12. Um, they got, I think when it comes to what they've done on the receiver side, it's pretty incredible. McCole Hardman, Alan Lazar, and I don't mean incredible like elite talent. I just mean they have on paper, a team that looks like they could go do it. They could get this thing done. But it's also just a lot of names that sound good. We need to see if they actually can go out there and play good. It gets to that kind of. I know Denver was the same way where when we got Russell Wilson, we were like Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Jerry Judy, KJ Hamler. Now it sounded great, but honestly, all four of them were very underwhelming. And I want to make sure before we go, Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard, McCole Hardman, uh, Denzel Mims, Corey Davis. I want to make sure that these guys actually perform. Because it's one thing to put it down on paper, it's another thing for it to actually work. And that's what I'm waiting to see. So I think we just have to wait and see on this one. Defensively, the Jets are pretty well stocked on the edge and at cornerback, but they're perhaps a bit less so at defensive tackle, linebacker, and safety. Their first draft selection was Will McDonald. That was a surprise, but it gives Robert Saleh a deep well of pass rushers. And as uh, Gary Payton, George Payton has said, you can never have too many pass rushers. That's totally true. Number 9, Seattle Seahawks. I think there's a reasonable argument that the Seahawks could find their way on this list. They've had probably two of the best, I would say in the last 3 years. Just look at who they've drafted. They've done such a great job drafting. They've turned day 3 guys into players last year that had a starting role for much of the season. I think they were the highest percentage. They had the highest percentage of usage as far as starting snaps out of their draft than anybody. So all their picks were practical. They added Draymond Jones from Denver, Jaron Reed, Cameron Young. They brought back Bobby Wagner. They have DK Metcalf, JSN now from Ohio State. Kenneth Walker, that dude balled out right away. Tyler Lockett's still there. I think the adding of Devin Witherspoon, I mean, that was the best corner available, and they got the best receiver available, and now they got them two to go against each other in practice. I think that's a good duo. They got a pretty well paid safety trio in Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams, and Julian Love. This could be a solid team, but at the end of the day, let's be real. Geno Smith. And I don't mean that in a rude way. Geno Smith had a better season last year than a lot, than 20, maybe 20 teams their quarterback play. Geno would have been a better option. So I don't mean that like, oh, Geno, but let's talk about it. I mean, we are doing a top 10 most complete team list, and you find yourself with a roster like the one Seattle has, and tell me, if Patrick Mahomes was the quarterback of this exact roster, what would the expectations be? And I feel like it would be very reasonable to say that this team would be favored to win the Super Bowl. And Geno Smith will take you to the playoffs. He may even win you a game, but does he have enough to win you a Super Bowl? And when your team is very complete, all that's left to do is find the weakest links and talk about those. That's why we're talking about Geno Smith. We're not trying to pick on him, but we look at this roster and we ask ourselves, what is stopping Seattle from going to the Super Bowl? What it would be their reason to have a roster like this and not make it? The ceiling of Geno Smith. He proved us wrong last year. He said that they wrote him off and he didn't write back. We'll see if he continues not to write back this year and continues to surprise us. I mean, it's really weird seeing a quarterback make, we call this a second or third year jump. This is like a year 14 jump. I mean, we're kind of in our uncharted territories with this whole Geno Smith thing. So at this point, I don't really feel comfortable like totally putting him in a box, but I do feel that he has a ceiling, just not as high as some of these other guys. And if he proves me wrong, then it won't be the first time he's done it. And then number 10, they got the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers, they seem to have um this charger barrier that they just can't get past. I work with Charger fans. We talk about it. There's even, what would that be, an adjective that the Chargers, they chargered the game away. Basically means that they gave it away. They don't find ways to win, they find ways to lose. And I was a part of a team that did that a lot last year too. And it's really an identity. And it's toxic. It's a very toxic identity because you feel like when there's 5 minutes left and you have the lead but they have the ball, you just have this gut feeling that what can go wrong will go wrong and we're not going to win this game. And it's really hard to figure out where it's coming from. And the problem is the more you lose, the more it feeds that feeling, the more that feeling becomes real, the more the cycle repeats. And I feel like the Chargers, they're on their way to really getting rid of this chargering thing because they have a quarterback who threw for the most passing yards in his first 3 seasons in Justin Herbert. And Herbie's a great quarterback, and I think he is a top 5 quarterback in the league. But after going up 27-0 and losing that game, you do kind of come back to, man, are the Chargers ever going to find a way to not charger? What's it going to take? the talent on the roster looks good. And regardless of how great the roster is, if you have a top 5 quarterback, you always have a chance to win the Super Bowl. That's why you cling on to these top 5 guys. You understand how rare they are. If Justin Herbert were on the Giants, they would be a team that people would probably consider, hey, they have a chance to make it to the Super Bowl. Why not? But you take the roster from the Chargers, like the Giants aren't on that roster, or the Giants aren't on this list. They're not considered a top 10 most complete team, but the Chargers are. And yet people don't predict that the Chargers are going to go to the Super Bowl, but they also think that Justin Herbert's a top 5 quarterback. So where's the disconnect? Is the roster not as good, but we're right about Herbert? Is Herbert not a top 5 quarterback, but the roster is really good? Or is there a reason that they haven't fired their head coach? Because they did bring in Kellen Moore to be the offensive coordinator, but they fired the OC. Like, oh, that's the problem. That was the problem. It wasn't Staley. It was offensive coordinator. And he did play conservative in that game. He didn't go for it. He didn't do any Madden because, he was under so much scrutiny for going for it in his own territory and apparently being super into analytics, but didn't pass the eyeball test when you're watching on your couch. You're like, 4th and 13, first quarter in our own territory. Why the hell are we going for it? There was a lot of that going on. Then he gets super conservative because he doesn't want to get fired, is what I thought. And it still didn't work out for him. And I was like, maybe he just doesn't have it. Whatever it is. It's hard to know what it is, but you know it when you see it. It's the same thing that Mike McDaniel in Miami had, and we knew it right away. Mike McDaniel was a young coach, and we were like, look at that. It works. When it works, it works. You know right away if it works. And I'm telling you, Staley, it doesn't work. Why are we forcing it? It's okay to move off decisions. Admit that you made a mistake and move off of it quick. That's what the great franchises do. They fire Nathaniel Hackett on week 15. They don't run it back for 3 years to see if maybe he can become something. Don't get stubborn with your bad decisions or your bad draft picks. Move off of them. The faster you do that, the faster you likely bring in somebody else that is going to, fill that role better. So the fact that they're staying with Staley, I don't know how high the expectations can be for this team, but as long as you have Justin Herbert, I feel like you can almost overcome those. But the real question is, why haven't they? And that's an open-ended question, and I don't really have the answer for that yet. But we'll see if that swap for Kellen Moore really unlocks something in Justin Herbert. It is possible that his full potential hasn't even been tapped yet. And we're going to see. It's a really interesting division, the AFC West, because last year this was going to be the best division that we've seen in sports. And we know for a fact that this division is better this year than it was last year. But no one's talking about it anymore because we already sang that song and we got the lyrics wrong. But the NFL, people don't like to be wrong 2 years in a row. But there is a good chance that this division is a lot more competitive this year than it was last year, not just within itself, but a problem for the league. A lot of people have been talking about, oh, the Chiefs, on Twitter and stuff. I've been talking to people that are like, the Chiefs, because Colin Coward was like, look at this Chiefs stretch. They play Denver, and then they go, they take a bye, and then they play Denver again, and then it was like the Eagles and the Dolphins. It was the Bengals. It was really tough. And then the guys go, why are they talking about Denver like it's a hard game? And I just was like, take a moment to remind yourself that week 12, Denver was up by 6 points in the fourth quarter. And then week 17, without even having a head coach, they had a chance to win the game. They had the ball in Chiefs territory with less than 2 minutes left. And like, let's not act like these were blowout games. This is going to be a competitive team under Sean Payton. I'm telling you right now. Forget about all your notes from last season. Everything is changing. Everything. If you have an opportunity to make a bet with your friends that think that Denver is going to be a laughing stock of the league, I'm not telling you that they're going to win 11 or 12 games. I'm telling you that they're not going to win 3. They're not going to win 4. Sean Payton has never been that bad, and he turned his first season from worst to an NFC championship game. And you can make a very easy argument that he did that with less talent than Denver has right now. And I really think that Denver is going to surprise a lot of people this year. I don't know how much. It's going to probably take some time to get going, but I think when they told us Sean Payton was the coach, the reason I celebrated so much is because I knew that Sean Payton is a winner. If Sean Payton would have gone to the Chargers to be a head coach, the Chargers, I think, would not be unrealistic to think that they could go to the Super Bowl. Sean Payton working with Herbert, are you kidding me? Do you know good? You know how much potential that Herbert would unlock? I mean, he would do things. I'm telling you right now. Sean Payton taking 1 year off in the NFL has made a lot of people forget because his last season with the Saints, people don't realize he was juggling Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton, and Alvin Kamara wasn't playing, and then Michael Thomas was hurt. This team was a disaster, and he still somehow got them to win 9 games and play their last game with a chance to go into the postseason. Sean Payton's not going to roll over, and things are going to be a lot different. In the AFC West, it's going to be a tough. This is the first year since Mahomes became the starting quarterback that there will be a battle for first place. There will not be a clear runaway. I don't believe that. And I feel the same way about NFC, the NFC East with the Eagles and the Cowboys, because the Eagles, I think, are the best team. But at the same time, they have a really hard schedule, and so do the Giants. There's going to be a lot of people having to overcome some stuff. And if the Giants are able to put together, a 3-game streak against some of those harder opponents, and Philly, struggles when they fly to the West Coast, back to the East Coast, back to the West Coast, they drop a couple. And then the Cowboys, there's going to be a battle, just like there was this year. Even though we felt like the Eagles were always going to be the number 1 seed, the 2 games Hurts sat out changed everything. And the Cowboys were still playing for the number 1 seed potentially by the end of the season. You're going to have that type of a battle this year. There are so many good divisions this year. It's hard to even predict, especially with the AFC East. I mean, Miami with healthy Tua, like I said, they had a top 5 offense last year, and Tua played half the season. We have no idea what this team is capable of, and they could very easily, I think, be the number 1 offense this year if Tua plays 17 games. I don't think that's bold at all. But Buffalo and the Jets, they're on missions themselves. And you can't forget about Bill Belichick. And that's kind of why I keep saying that I think this is the best as far as like competitive goes. I don't feel like we've ever had this many teams that have a chance to win it all. It's not 2 to 3 teams anymore. It's like 10. It's like a list of 10 teams that could all win a Super Bowl, and I think Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence can find themselves in an AFC Championship game this year at home. And that is just such a crazy thing to say after the last 3 seasons that Jacksonville has had, excluding the last one. I'm talking about when they won like 1 game out of their last 30, the 2 seasons before last. And, now we're talking about maybe hosting a playoff game. Their division's very favorable. I think that if they win all their games against all these easy opponents, By the time the Chiefs are done battling with Buffalo just to play the Bengals or the Jets, and then Jags are resting because they got a first round bye, and then they're at home. I think by the time these other AFC teams get to Jacksonville, there's a good chance that they're so beat up and tired that Jacksonville just wins the game because they're rested and at home, and they've been playing the Colts all year, or they've been playing, the Texans twice a year, or the Titans. I mean, are you kidding me? Jacksonville, as far as windows go, I feel like they have got to capitalize on the way their schedule is falling this year. There is a very, very good chance Jacksonville finds themselves in the most favorable condition to win a Super Bowl than the year is that are going to follow, right? It's not going to get any easier. But when you look at this schedule, there's really no excuse Jacksonville doesn't get a number one seed because all these other teams are going to have to battle against the other powerhouses, go on the road, play the Bengals, then go to Buffalo, Jacksonville, staying at home, flying, even their away games are just like the Colts. They don't have a lot of big traveling. They take a 45-minute flight to Nashville, I'm exaggerating a little, but no, compared to what the rest of the other league is doing, it's like Jacksonville's playing Division 2 ball this year, but they are not doing it with a Division 2 team. I think that within their division, they're going to look like they are the one that doesn't belong. They are going to be the team that's winning by a high margin week in and week out. So look, I'm really excited to see how it all falls. But those are the big things. The draft is in Green Bay, 2025. The NFL Super Bowl 2026 is going to be in the Bay Area. DeAndre Hopkins wants to play with a quarterback that loves the game. Kyler loves the game, has stability in the front office, and has a good defense. Doesn't really care about money anymore. Thank you for your agent telling you to put that out there. I think Kyler Murray. I think Hopkins will have a new home in the next couple weeks because of this. And the AFC East, and the NFL approved the emergency third quarterback. That was the last thing that I needed to go over because obviously the NFC Championship game with Brock Purdy, we saw what happened. Trey Lance was done week 2, and then Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt. And Brock Purdy was a great story, but he broke his elbow in the championship game. And basically, this new rule will mean that you can have an emergency quarterback and you can make him active in a situation where you need one. But it can't be because of disciplinary action. So let's say your third string quarterback gets ejected because, he spits on someone's face. You can't activate an emergency quarterback in that situation. And you also can't do it because, let's say, 2 of your quarterbacks aren't playing well, so you bench them. It has to be through an injury, like the exact scenario that Brock Purdy and the 49ers found themselves in last year when backup Josh Johnson got a concussion in the third quarter, which forced Purdy to re-enter, but he couldn't do more than toss 2 short passes for the rest of the game. And the Eagles ended up running away with it without us even getting a real game. So the clubs are now allowed to dress an emergency quarterback. And of course, the hope is that viewers avoid watching such a disaster again. Most people felt a little cheated that the season ended the way it did. I mean, I felt like the 49ers had a chance to win that game, but I mean, to not have a quarterback at all, that's not even a handicap. That's like, dude, you were playing with a guy that couldn't even throw a pass. Like we have to do better than that. You had Christian McCaffrey trying to run a wildcat to throw a pass. I mean, that wasn't a game. And of all things, it's the worst time for it to happen is when we finally feel like we're gonna get this, these two teams are gonna duke it out, to see who the best is. I'm Dirty Dan. No, I'm Dirty Dan. trying to figure out who the real Dirty Dan is over here with the most physical team and the best offense, and we totally get robbed from the entire game. And the NFL was honestly, when that game was over, I was like, man, I feel cheated. I remember saying, and I understand it's nobody's fault, but I remember just feeling like, man, this is a game I've been looking forward to since week 12, and it finally came. And the Eagles basically just got a ticket to go to the Super Bowl without being tested. And the Eagles definitely proved through the way they played in the regular season that they deserve to go to the Super Bowl. So I don't want to take anything away from them. I just wish that we would have seen who the better team is fully healthy between those two ball clubs. So uh, Bill said Tom Brady has a deal to buy a minority stake in the Raiders, confirmed by Mark Davis. Don't know if you heard. Has to be approved by 24 other owners. I did hear that. I think that was like 4 days ago. Um, yeah, I heard about it. I didn't. I just thought, I think what I heard is that Tom Brady isn't going to be in the coaching or anything like that, but he's more going to be just kind of an idea person and give his opinion on um, drafting I mean, the guy is one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league, so it makes sense. I'm trying to think of what that word is when um, you're kind of like oh God, I can't think of the word right now. When you're like the go-to person for questions and stuff like that, I think that's kind of what Tom Brady's role is going to be. And it's smart. You're seeing a lot of players now kind of take some kind of role in being an owner. Um, Michael Jordan did it. You saw Aaron Rodgers become a minority owner in the Milwaukee Bucks. Um, AJ Brown just became a owner of an arena football team that we just found out he's going to suit up and play for. So apparently he became like a 49% owner. And then he drove the other guy that was like a 51% owner. He drove him. Look, this is what I've heard. He drove this other dude so crazy, which I believe that he ended up like giving up his portion or selling it just to get the hell away from Antonio Brown. And Antonio Brown ended up buying it, giving him full power. And he's not leaving the stadium. And, he's like, I own the field. And they're like, no, you have to leave. And he's not paying his coaches. So then his coaches quit. So, he's basically like, I guess, an owner, a GM, a head coach, and now he like said he's going to play receiver in a couple months. He's going to suit up and go play. I don't know what is going on with Antonio Brown, but I couldn't even imagine how difficult it must be for people that have been in this business world their whole life to just have some rich guy that, has no respect for other people come in and just, take a bunch of shortcuts with his money. Meanwhile, he's going to court in Miami-Dade because he can't even pay his own child support, but he's got money to buy a team. Look, that's none of my business, but I would just feel like that sounds like a total nightmare for the people that have to, continue to show up to work and, be dedicated to what they love when it feels like you've been taken over by a 7-year-old that's playing Madden in franchise mode and there's nothing you can do about it. But yeah, if you guys haven't heard about the Antonio Brown thing, definitely look into that. Even if you're not an Antonio Brown fan, it's hilarious. KC said, hey, Bill Richard, why not buy a minority interest in the Patriots? LOL. I don't think that Tom Brady and the Patriots are on like the greatest terms. I feel like Tom Brady, I Draymond Green just had his post conference after losing to the Lakers. By the way, the Lakers lost to Denver today. The Nuggets are going to the finals. But you know what he said at the end? He said they asked him if this was the end of the Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green thing. And he said that I want to finish it where I started. He's hoping that a discount can be maybe worked out. Tom Brady wanted to leave New England. And you have to ask yourself, why? Right? And I don't think it takes a rocket science to know that all was not well within the land of the Patriots. We knew that Robert Kraft and the Bill Belichick micromanaging, situations was, really upsetting. And quite frankly, I think there's been enough of a sample size to see that Bill Belichick is not responsible for Tom Brady's success. I think it may not have hurt, but Tom Brady definitely was the person. Um, if you had to pick who was more important, it was Tom Brady. And I felt like maybe Tom Brady didn't feel like, maybe with the fans he did, but probably at work, he just felt like, man, I just want to get out of here and go have fun, like a kid that turned 18 that just needs to get out of their parents' house so they can, stay up at 11, past 11 and just live their own life and break free from Bill Belichick and that system over there that is controlling. And um I think that's really why Tom Brady just probably wouldn't go near the New England Patriots organization with a 10-foot pole. Um but he is going to be there week 1 against the Eagles. When the Eagles come to New England, they're going to honor Tom Brady on the field. So I still think that, the relationship is not so terrible that, they can't do things like that. But I think for sure Tom Brady's probably going to be looking for a team like the Raiders, who have a lot of upside because of the city that they're in. Vegas and Brady have always been kind of linked to potentially a trade place that Tom would play next year. And, maybe it's because if he would have played, he would have went there. But instead, he becomes a whatever that word is that I've been trying to think of. He becomes basically another mind in the room to help them grow. And Tom he understands branding. I mean, look at TB12, the brand, the food, the clothes. Brady is a big face and a big image, and I think that's what a place like Las Vegas needs. Massachusetts wasn't really big enough for Tom Brady, in my opinion. Just like Aaron Rodgers was a little bigger than Green Bay, if it weren't for the long history that that town has. But yeah, happy for Tom Brady. I hope that he has no success with the Raiders because F the Raiders, and you guys know how I feel about the Raiders. But that's all I got for today. Thank you guys for coming in and hanging out. And I've been I've actually been getting private Twitter messages from people that one of the guys, I won't say where he works, but it is it's a position where if I told you, you'd be like, that's really awesome. That personally messaged me about my Packers wrap that I put up with their season. And I've just gotten such great feedback from the fans of Green Bay. So I just wanted to say thank you to all the people that have messaged me about that. And for the people asking if I'm going to do all 32 teams, I am working on it right now. So definitely going to keep that going because the feedback was just so great from it. And I honestly didn't know what to expect, but I had so much fun doing it. And I think there's a lot of fun info in it. Like when I said we haven't seen this Packers Raiders game on a Monday night since Favre lost his dad. That is the last time in 2003 that we saw Packers Raiders on a Monday night. So I tried to not just make it, game by game, but little fun fact about the games. Like when I got to the Chiefs, I said it's the second time that Jordan Love is going to start versus the Chiefs. And in reality, he'll probably get beat. Um, because Jordan Love started a game during the COVID year against the Chiefs. So I'm going to keep keep it original, keep putting in facts like that. But yeah, I just want to say thank you before I logged off here to all the people that really enjoyed that, because I enjoyed making it. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed it too. But that's all I got for today. And thank you guys for being in here, and I'll see you next time. Go Broncos.